All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is webinar number 7 in our series for Secrets of Successful Retirement. Today's topic is Tap Home Equity, and we have the opportunity to have a guest speaker, Brian McGray from Fairway Mortgage Corporation, with us today. At Senior Resource Center, we help in 4 distinct ways. First is comprehensive retirement planning. We do plans helping people look out 30 years to make sure they don't outlive their money and finding ways to stretch what they have for retirement. The second is tax planning, figuring out ways to pay less tax. We don't do tax prep, but we just find ways that we can pay less tax over time. The third is long-term care planning. We do extensive work in this area, including helping people apply for federal and state programs as well as insurance products. And then we do estate planning. We're not attorneys, but we do help people make sure they have the right legal documents in place so that they don't have to go through probate and that they are allowed to pass on things to their heirs in the right way. Okay, so if you missed any of our previous webinars that you see on the screen, you're always welcome to go to our website, srctexas.com, and look under resources where we have our recordings up there. You can just click on it and listen to it at your leisure. We also have them on our Facebook page as well as on YouTube. And if you miss any, you're always welcome to go there. Our next upcoming one is all about taxes. That'll be next week, as well as we have a few more all the way through mid-May. So be sure to keep in touch with us. You can always go on our website to see the upcoming ones to register, as well as we'll always send out a newsletter letting you know what's coming up next. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to my business partner, Bill Witt, and our presenter, Brian McGray.
Thanks, Tara. And let me add my welcome to everybody that's joining us today. We always kind of start out our webinars with a problem. And, one of the issues that we deal with as human beings is we're living much, much longer. And longevity means that our money has to last longer as well to support, a safe and smart retirement. And many people outlive their savings. Two of the principal assets we have usually going into retirement are IRAs or 401ks, and then the value in our home. And if we've depleted our 401ks or IRAs, maybe the last line of defense is equity that's built up in our home. And so today we want to talk about a plan to tap home equity. We're going to talk about different strategies to use as the home equity as a way to support a safe and secure retirement. So our topics, we'll touch briefly on the impact of longevity, why this is important, and then we're going to outline 3 different strategies to use our homes to generate equity for lifestyle, and then finally we'll summarize with your questions. So let's talk a little bit about longevity. When I wrote my book back in 2020, one of the things I researched, I Googled, what was the average life expectancy in the Stone Age? How about Roman times? What about medieval times? How about 1900? And it kind of surprised me, but average life expectancy for humanity didn't change over many thousands of years. It was always around 30, 31, 32 years of life expectancy. But if you do a Google on what's life expectancy today, if you're born in 2022, you'll see that in the United States, average life expectancy is 78 years. That's a much bigger number than 32. But even that doesn't tell the real story. That 78-year total includes infant mortality. And so maybe a more a good question is, if you're 65 today, what is your life expectancy going forward? If you're a man living at age 65 today in the United States, your average life expectancy is another 18 years or 83. Women live even longer. Their average life expectancy is 20 years, or the average woman will live, that's 65 today, will live to be 85. But these are average numbers, average. What that means is fully half of us will live longer. So if you watch your weight and watch what you eat and watch your blood pressure and visit the doctor frequently, there's a very good chance that you'll live into your late 80s, 90s. Some of us will live to 100. And so the end result is our money must last much, much longer than it did 50, 60, 70 years ago. So today we want to talk about 3 different strategies for tapping home equity. We didn't have a chapter on home equity in my first version of my book in 2020, but today we do have one, and we talk about 3 different strategies. The first is downsizing, selling your home. We'll talk about that. The second is rental income, using the home as a source of income. And the third, where I'm going to bring Brian McCray in to help us explore ways to tap home equity tax-free. So let's get started. Downsizing. If there was ever a time to sell a home in Central Texas, it's today. Over the last couple of years, we've seen housing prices skyrocket. We've seen crazy bidding wars for homes. We've seen offers of hundreds of thousands of dollars over actual listing price to buy a home. So today is a great time to sell your home. And from a tax standpoint, it can also be very attractive. The tax code lets single people protect up to $250,000 of home value gain from taxes. Married couples can double that. They can protect up to $500,000. Now, to qualify for this, you have to be in your home 2 of the previous 5 years. But what this means is for many of us that maybe the home has become more of a burden. Maybe the maintenance and the upkeep and the effort is more than what you want to undertake at this point. So downsizing and moving to an apartment or a condo might be an attractive option. And there we are able to protect a large amount of the gain from taxes. So we have more money to spend on our retirement. The second option that's become incredibly popular is rental. And if you go around the city of Austin, rental rates are also at an all-time high. My son recently came and had lunch with me and told me that he and his roommate are getting a $250 increase on their monthly rent. So rental income is going up. What this means, there's 2 real options for your home. You could do a traditional rental where you rent to someone on a permanent basis. You rent out a room, or in the case of my wife and I, we have 2 houses actually, or 2 buildings on our property in Burnett. One is a carriage house where we lived for 8 years while we were putting kids through college. Then we built our main primary residence. And so we have an option. We could rent that out full time, or what we've started to investigate are some of the part-time options. You've heard about Airbnb and Vacasa and others, where you can rent a property for a weekend or 4 or 5 days. And so rental income is an excellent way to get value out of your home. If you have a son or daughter who's thinking about moving back home, make sure they realize part of living at home now is you've got to contribute to the upkeep of the homestead. And so having a son or daughter move back in, that can also be an effective way to increase income. You have more spending money, you can have an enjoyable lifestyle. Now, the third strategy, I'm going to bring Brian McCray in. Before I ask Brian to talk, I want to address something. If you followed our previous webinars, if you've read my book, you know that Tara and I have taken kind of a road less traveled in helping people build safe, secure retirement plans. In our practice, we use some of the less conventional products. We use insurance products to help people generate income to build a safe, secure retirement. One of the products we've used over the years that have improved markedly since 2010 are tax deferred annuities. And, many people over the years have come to see me, and when I mention a tax deferred annuity, they go, well, I've got a bad impression about them. And oftentimes it's tied to something they learned 15, 16, 18 years ago, and they're not aware that modern products offer much, much better options. Well, this third option I'm going to have Brian talk about is one that has kind of that tarnished history, but today may offer maybe an excellent tool for some of you who are otherwise house rich, but asset poor. And so with that, Brian, let me turn it over to you. Brian, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you, Bill. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier about longevity. And that longevity also presents itself with those who are 62 and over, the baby boomers. That generation is, rushing headlong into retirement such that there are 10,000 people that turn 62 every single day in this country. And that group hasn't saved enough for retirement. In fact, that group is about $6 trillion shy of what they need to safely retire against what they've saved. And $6 trillion, that's a massive sum of money. That's more than the combined balances of all the 401k portfolios in the United States. So that represents a massive amount of wealth. But if you look at the next item up on that graph, that same group collectively, 62 and over, has a combined $9 trillion in home equity. So back in 2010, lenders and the FHA looked at this inequity and looked at the challenges seniors were facing in getting to retirement and said, hey, look, why don't we find a vehicle that will allow those 62 and over to tap into some of that hard earned equity and turn it into liquidity? And what we did was we essentially modernized the reverse mortgage. And there's the first time I've said it. We are talking about a type of reverse mortgage. Specifically, in 2010, the reverse mortgage was changed, and the modern vehicle is called a home equity conversion mortgage, or HECM. And the whole idea of a home equity conversion mortgage was to provide a means to those 62 and over to put that hard earned equity, home equity, to work and turn it into liquid wealth. And in doing so, what we're able to do now is to consider the house, which previously in retirement planning, just about every financial advisor that I talk to and most clients that I talk to don't consider the house as in part of the retirement plan, either when they're earning income or when they're in retirement. But the reality is our homes represent, in most cases, our most expensive, our most valuable item of wealth that we own. So the house has also typically been sacred. It's been sacrosanct. It's been, we're going to pay it off. We're going to hand it down to our kids, and we're going to protect it at all costs. When really it's a long term asset, and it's a long term asset that now can be capitalized. And in thinking about it from a planning perspective, this gives us this third bucket, this home, this bucket that we can now manipulate right alongside our income in our savings when we're earning, whether that's in a life insurance policy or a 401k. But we also bought a home in that time, probably in our late 20s, early 30s. We bought our first home. We started making house payments. Well, we're essentially investing in that home. And so on the retirement side, now you have your pensions and Social Security for income. You're drawing down from your portfolio. And now you have a way to draw from that home equity to fund your lifestyle as well. Now we work hand in hand with financial advisors. More often than not, my work is working with them and clients to intentionally build ways to incorporate that income stream such that we're maximizing the retirement portfolio. This leads us to some of the bad things you may have heard about reverse mortgages, and bear in mind this reverse mortgages have been around for a long time, but the modern reverse mortgages really are only about a decade old. But what I hear and what you guys will hear out there in the ether is that it's a loan of last resort, and you're poor if you have one. And that was true, back in the 70s and 80s when early reverse mortgages came about. But so we're just having a mortgage in general is not something that you typically wanted to have. And from a planning perspective, you really would hold out until the very end and not use your house unless you absolutely had to. Well, one of the features of any mortgage is that you have to maintain the property, you have to pay the property taxes, and you have to pay the homeowner's insurance. And if you struggle doing that, you're probably going to struggle doing that even if you have a reverse mortgage. And so a lot of people lost their homes because they were really unable to afford the home in the first place. Now, the modern reverse mortgages have a lot of mechanisms to address that. Among them is required counseling. And so now borrowers who get a reverse mortgage are required by the FHA to go through a counseling session so that they understand how to best put that money to work. You'll also hear that they're risky or they're dangerous, and a lot of that comes from the fact that they are unknown. They're also somewhat complicated. They don't work the way that regular mortgages works, and the unknown is always scary. And so I have many of my clients whose family and friends will advise them not to even think about reverse mortgages because it's that perceived risk and that perceived danger. And then one of the biggest things that I hear is that the government or the lender gets your house in the end, or we're going to seize your home. And that's just patently not true. There are several different options for when the reverse mortgage comes due in terms of what the homeowner or the homeowner's heirs are able to do. But in most cases, it's in everyone's best interest for the homeowner to be able to dispose of the home by a sale, or for the heirs to be able to keep ownership of that home. And in that regard, a reverse mortgage is just a mortgage. So, like any other, it functions the same way. You can buy your home, you can sell your home, you can refinance. You can actually use a reverse mortgage to purchase a home. So, if you are downsizing, there is a way to use a reverse mortgage to actually purchase that next home as well. So, from an instrument perspective, it's just a mortgage. And one of the features of a reverse mortgage is that payment is not required. So, payment's not required on a mortgage until the last homeowner permanently leaves the home. So why make a mortgage payment if you don't have to? So if you have a forward mortgage payment, my parents are a great example of this. They have a home in Liberty Hill. They have about 50% equity, and they've got a hefty house payment. They're retired. They're paying about their $1,700 worth of principal and interest payments. And now when they move to this reverse mortgage, they're essentially replacing the forward mortgage with the reverse. And now they're taking their house payment out of their monthly cash flow. And that's life changing, just that in and of itself. Now, for those of you who own your homes outright or have substantially more than 50% equity, you can convert that equity into liquidity. And you can use that liquidity for just about anything. It spends the same as cash, and you can use it tax-free. It essentially functions as a line of credit. And so because it's debt, the IRS doesn't consider it income. And so when you think about your ability to use this pool of wealth and integrate it into your overall financial plan, what we're basically doing is we're handing your financial advisor a tax-free pool of wealth. And also the means and the strategies to be able to plan how to best utilize that tax-free pool of wealth in conjunction with the rest of your retirement portfolio. And so these two things together allow you to intelligently and intentionally use your home equity to help you survive retirement and leave more legacy wealth behind. And then most importantly, you never owe more than the home is worth. So when you get your reverse mortgage, as long as you live in the home, as long as you maintain the home, you pay the taxes and the property charges, you can stay as long as you want. So if you live to be 150, you can stay till you're 150. But either way, no matter how long you stay, no matter what happens to the housing market, you'll never owe more than the home is worth because the loan itself is taken out against the home. So there's no recourse against the borrower or the borrower's heirs if for whatever reason the home is no longer worth more than the loan balance. So how do you qualify and who qualifies? Well, you have to be 62 or older. And in Texas, Texas has the distinction of being the only state that requires both spouses. So if you're a husband and wife, both spouses must be 62. You'll need to have at least 50% equity in the home, and it has to be a primary residence. So you can't do this against an investment home or a second home. And then for us here at Fairway, it's because we believe incorporating this into the retirement plan is so important. The idea of a reverse mortgage is to secure the home so that you can age in place. And so we want this to be a home that you're planning on staying in long term. And if you meet these criteria today, it's likely you're going to meet them tomorrow too. So one of the reasons we're here to educate, and one of the reasons we, like Bill, believe that this is just a tool. And it's a tool that when you learn about how it works and you see how it functions, it may or may not be right for you. But the great news is if it's right for you today, it'll be right for you tomorrow. And we're here to help. As a reverse mortgage planner, this is all I do. So I don't do regular mortgages. I focus all of my time on reverse mortgage planning, and I work hand in hand with financial advisors to incorporate that home equity into the retirement income program. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Brian. I like the way you positioned a reverse mortgage. It's like what Tara and I offer. We offer a set of tools, and for some they fit, for some they don't. And our practice is all about educating people so at least they understand their options, their choices, so that they can go back and figure out which tools are the best fit to help them solve the problems they face and enjoy retirement. I'm curious, what's the most frequent question that you get asked?
I think the most frequent question we get is what happens when at the end of the reverse mortgage. And there is some complexity there. That's one of the items for consideration with reverse. The way that works is whenever the last homeowner permanently leaves the home, the mortgage comes due. And in most cases, it's the homeowners pass away or they move into long-term care. In most cases, there's plenty of equity. So there's plenty of equity in the home, and so the home can be sold and the proceeds used to satisfy the mortgage. If it's an heir can simply refinance the house and refinance it into a traditional mortgage, and that's the most common outcome. The most common outcome is there's plenty of equity left, and so you just use the equity to take care of the mortgage. And that process has to be complete within, you get a maximum of 12 months. So if you decide to sell the home, you'll get up to 12 months to sell the home to satisfy that reverse mortgage. Now, if in the unfortunate circumstance, and the rare circumstance these days, where the home's value isn't enough to cover the loan balance. So let's say I lived a really long life, I consumed all of my line of credit, and right before I passed on, the housing market crashed. And now my house isn't worth enough to cover the loan balance. Well, if that occurs, so to go back to something I said earlier, there's no recourse against the homeowner or the heirs. So only the home can be used to satisfy that loan. So the heirs and the homeowner may decide to voluntarily foreclose, so just give up the home to satisfy the note. But they can also buy the home. So the heirs can purchase the home for 95% of its market value because we believe it's in everyone's best interest to keep the home or keep the home in the family. So lots of different potential outcomes. It's important to have guidance in that process. You're certainly notified by your loan servicer, but it's important to understand what needs to occur when that mortgage comes due.
Wow. That's a lot to think about. You hit on a topic that is very central to our practice, and that's paying for long-term care. And one of the things that Tara and I have learned over the last 20 years of helping people with retirement planning, long-term care is probably one of the biggest risks we face. And we did a previous webinar where we talked about the cost of assisted living or skilled nursing. Those costs keep going up, and I know most of the clients we talk to want to stay in their home. So, how do you afford bringing caregivers in to let somebody, live in the home that they're familiar with, comfortable with? I see a reverse mortgage as an excellent tool for finding the equity to be used to pay for that so that people can stay where they want to stay, so they don't have to transition to assisted living or skilled nursing. So I think that's one very effective use, as well as just enhancing options and lifestyle. And with housing prices continuing to rise in Texas, I would imagine that as long as home equity keeps rising, even though the value of the reverse mortgage is going up, you're still maintaining a pretty solid equity value there that'll pass on to heirs after people die.
Certainly, we talk to our clients, especially here in Central Texas. It's one of the factors that we talk about is, hey, what's this house going to be worth in 15 years? So one of the considerations for a lot of our clients is downsizing, and so you're going to sell your house. Well, where are you going to move? Especially if you're planning to stay in Central Texas, it's a pretty competitive marketplace where staying in your home gives you the option to be able to stay there and take advantage of all that appreciation that everyone is seeing. And I also want to go back to the long-term care aspect of it because that is a very popular topic of conversation, both with my financial advisor partners, but also our clients. And when we talk about aging in place and we talk about the use of home equity, it's actually a popular use to be able to get a reverse mortgage with the plan to age in place, and then use the funds, the proceeds to remodel the home as necessary, as needed to make it easier to navigate, and then to use those proceeds again to help with defray the long-term care expenses or even act as a hedge down the road. So that's a very popular topic of conversation these days.
Well, when would you recommend people investigate a reverse mortgage?
We are very specific. We believe that as soon as you turn 61 and a half, so that's the qualification, you officially turn 62 from our perspective as soon as you're 6 months from your 62nd birthday. So as soon as you turn 61 and a half, and as soon as you're approaching that 50% equity position, it definitely bears investigation. This is a very versatile instrument, so there's lots of different ways to deploy it, lots of different ways depending on the time in which you do. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to wait till it's too late. And so when you turn 62, you can start to at least understand your options and plan for, like I said earlier, if it's not today, you'll be qualified tomorrow and 6 months down the road as well.
Well, that's very much in line with what Tara and I are all about in terms of educating people. I think knowledge is power, and the more we can understand the various options and tools we have as we enter into retirement or plan for retirement, it just you can make an informed choice. You can make an informed decision, and uh, not regret it later. You understand the pros and cons of everything we do, whether it's creating more guaranteed income in retirement, safe investing, paying less taxes. I mean, these are all elements of a comprehensive retirement plan. And I see a reverse mortgage as a strong tool for a certain segment of people. Like you said, it may not be the right tool for everyone, but it may be the best tool for certain people. And for those, they can take advantage of it.
Definitely, that's our one of our biggest objectives is to overcome this perception, and to get that knowledge out there, because there is this perception that reverse mortgages are a bad thing or they're a negative thing or the unknowns about the modern reverse mortgage, and so just getting this information out so that people can understand what's available, and then allowing our clients to make informed decisions. Because as you said, this is just a tool; it's another tool that belongs in that massive toolbox that you wrote about in that book, that you can deploy when and if it fits.
Well, good. Tara, do we have any other questions from our viewers today on reverse mortgages?
I don't think so. It sounds like you guys did a good job answering all the questions. So that's great. If you do have questions, you're always welcome to email or call Brian or one of us, Bill or Tara. Our information's on the screen. And don't forget, next week we'll be talking about ways to save on taxes. And as always, it's going to be 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. And if you want to listen to this again, I'll be sending it to anyone who registered over email. And then in the next 24 to 48 hours, you will see it posted on our website so you can watch the recording as you wish. All right. With that, I think we'll say goodbye. Have a wonderful day.